Our next speaker is Dr. Waseem Sayed Saab. And Dr. Sayed received his PhD degree from Imperial College London in physics in 1980. He has the distinction of being mentored by Professor Abdus Salam. On a Jamaat level, Dr. Sayed serves as the National Secretary Waqf-e-Jadid and is a member of the National Tabligh, National Media, National Mosque Fund Team, and a volunteer for Humanity First USA.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm very grateful to the organizers for these 10 minutes that they've given me. And the presentation that I want to make is, and I'm first of all very, very happy to see that I think more than 50% of the audience is much younger than most of us. And I'm hoping that what I'm going to talk about will interest them in looking at science in a way which is consistent with what the Holy Quran talks about. What I want to discuss really are the parallels between the formulation of what we call modern science and the formulation of Islam as it's laid out by the Holy Quran. And you will understand that as we go along, but the point I'm trying to make, when we look at the Holy Quran as we did in the presentation that we just had, and we show that, look, the Quran talks about geology, look, the Quran talks about the Big Bang, look, the Quran talks about and mentions, as we will see from the presentation of Dr. Saab, about regeneration of cells and so on and so forth. A lot of times the criticism is leveled at us that, how come you were not the first? And I think one of the objectives of this conference, as Mohtaram Mehdi Saab just mentioned, is hopefully to facilitate perhaps that to happen also. But I think there is a much more fundamental statement that the audience, and especially, as I said, the young members who are here, they need to understand. I want to discuss these parallels that exist between what we understand to be modern science and what the Holy Quran used as an approach to the religion of Islam and how it presented Islam. But before I can kind of make that point, there is a prevalent misconception that science has nothing to do with faith. And this is such a lie, if you like, that most people, when they talk about science, they're absolutely unaware of the fact that every scientific theory that exists, it starts from faith. It starts with a certain irreducible number of absolutely nothing but assumptions that we have to take on faith, that we have to believe, and then we can take the next step forward. And in the end, it's much worse than that. In the end, every scientific theory that has as its basis 5 or 6 or 3 irreducible assumptions faces the day when whatever it's predicting or whatever it is trying to explain, for example, physics, the way that nature works, it faces the day when we make observations that are in contradiction with the predictions made by the theory. And so what we find is that any theory that we invent to try and understand phenomena faces a day when it fails. And the underlying assumptions, that's the day that we realize that those were assumptions and they were not absolute truths. They were not, things, I was going to say, revealed by God. But the point is that a day comes for every theory when the observed phenomena will not be accurately predicted or explained by the theory. Now, this is more than just saying, for example, that you are supposed to predict how quickly a ball will fall in the air, and the theory calculates it for a vacuum, and you have to correct for the fact that there is air resistance. I'm not talking about those small correcting things. The day comes when the theory predicts the result should be 2, and the experiment shows that the result is 20 or 4. And that's the day which leads to a re-examination of the underlying assumptions, and then we discover, if we are lucky, the new theory and the new assumptions, and again, we abandon those old beliefs. And this is not just theoretical, me pontificating to you. This is something that has happened in our own lifetimes. We have gone through, in the last century that Mehdi Sahib was talking about, where the old theory, very highly successful, put together by Newton, which brought together all the knowledge that we had from natural philosophy into his axioms, and it worked for hundreds of years. But when we started looking at phenomena that were very small scale, we realized that he was all wrong. The very fundamental assumption that that theory made, that you can make an observation without disturbing a system, was found to be absolutely wrong. And our view to the whole universe changed. And as our previous speaker was talking, you know, there is mention again and again in the Promised Messiah's books of the creation of a new heavens and a new earth when a prophet comes. A new heaven and a new earth is also created when a new scientific theory appears. When Newton invented his theory, the world changed completely. And when quantum mechanics and classical mechanics came along, again we had a new heaven and a new earth and a totally different understanding. But the point is that this doesn't mean that the effort is worthless. The new theory that we invent, that we understand, which is based on new assumptions, nevertheless has to produce the results when you don't have relativistic velocities involved, the results that were produced by classical mechanics. When you're not looking at phenomena that are very small, it has to show that the results are the same as the old theory. So this is what is known as the correspondence principle. Now, the formulation of Islam. Keep all of this in mind as we read the Holy Quran's statement as to how it talks about faith. In the very beginning, it says with regard to the people who are righteous, those who will benefit from the Quran, that they believe in the unseen. And this, as I said to you before, is precisely where science begins. So you read in Surah Baqarah, in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, I am Allah, the all-knowing. This is a perfect book. There is no doubt in it. It's a guidance for the righteous. So the introduction of the author. You know, the Surah Fatiha is the abstract of the Holy Quran. If there is any analogy that you want to do to the Holy Quran and science, that's the abstract. This is where the stuff begins. And very, very early in the beginning, the Quran says your faith starts with some axioms. These are the belief in the unseen. And then it emphasizes experiment. It talks about trying to get to the unseen through prayer. And then it talks about you using whatever it is that you have. If you read the stories of any of the scientists, you will see that they forget to eat. When they begin to realize that they've discovered the thing behind the curtain. When Newton discovered after the apple fell on his head, presumably, so the story says, he couldn't sleep. He had to figure out what it was that was actually the way that the planets could be explained and this and that. So the Holy Quran makes a sketch, such a perfect sketch of what happens when you discover what's behind the curtain. And then Allah Ta'ala goes on to say, they believe in what was revealed before you. So today, what we believe in Newton, and they believe in what has been revealed to you, what was revealed before you, and they have firm faith in what is yet to come. This is why every scientist wakes up. He knows that it's not the end of the journey, there is yet a lot more. And this is the correspondence principle that I was referring to in the beginning. Now this is, it says, you know, my title says a new approach. Actually, it's not new at all. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih is the first, and I will end with these. He says this long time ago. He said, why does taqwa, which is the root of every formula for achievement and success, require at its very beginning that you should believe in the unseen, as it is said in the Holy Quran, yu'minuna bil ghaib? He says the reason for this is that every achievement, whether it is in the worldly realm or in the realm of spirituality and faith, its true and real basis is indeed faith in the unseen, and it is by beginning with this that in the end very great feats of acquisition of knowledge and learning are accomplished, and the fine points of hidden verities are explained. Now this is what he says with regard to what I was all talking about. He says, when we consider all the fields of knowledge, and this is the point I want you to go away with, especially as I said, the young members of this audience today, that every theory begins with yu'minuna bil ghaib, belief in the unseen, belief in some axioms that somehow or the other you have been able to see that the rest of the people don't see. So he says every field of knowledge, whether it's mathematics, Euclidean geometry, algebra, geography, natural philosophy, in all of them, if in the beginning some things are not accepted as true for argument's sake, one cannot take a single step forward. In the beginning, when you accept these as true, then the doors of the discovery of great truth and knowledge are open to you. And then he goes on and explains what the atheists could learn if they were to just assume and believe in God. For the sake of believing, they would be able to improve their lives, and then they would be able to see in the, eating the pudding, that the fundamental assumption may well be correct. And he goes on to tell us what faith is. But the method of the Holy Quran emphasizes experiment, and this is essentially what led to the formulation of science in the way that modern science is developed, in which experiment became the big thing. And this is something that was very alien to the Greeks, and Dr. Abdul Salam Sahib has mentioned it. In my bigger 100-page talk, it is there. But let me end with this slide. Allah Ta'ala says that if you do strive in my way, He will reveal to you what it is that you are seeking. And this was where Mehdi Sahib started, that begin by prayer and ask God to guide you, and He will give you the answer. This is one of the statements of the Holy Quran. Jazakallah.